Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you very much. Secretary Gottmuller, I wanted to ask you, what's the administration's plan to respond to Russia's request under the Open Skies Treaty to allow surveillance planes with high-powered digital cameras? I know there's been a lot of concern about that in open press.
Yes, sir. Let me just say a word about the Open Skies Treaty. It is a treaty that was first created by President Eisenhower, by General Eisenhower back during the 1950s. He saw it as a benefit to us and our allies to have the kind of mutual confidence building that would come from being able to fly airborne platforms over the Soviet Union at that time. And so I want to stress, first of all, that this treaty is completely reciprocal. And in fact, the Russians have a quota of about 20 flights a year. They've used 3 or 4 of those flights in the last couple of years. We fly much more frequently over the Russian Federation with our allies and partners in Europe than they fly over the United States. So that's just some basic facts about the treaty. With regard to the digital sensors you mentioned, that was written into the treaty when it was negotiated. We are seeing the end of wet film cameras. Our own guys can't get their hands on film for the cameras. It's simply become an obsolete technology, as everybody who's gone out and bought a digital camera will recognize. So in order to continue to implement the treaty, all treaty partners are now looking at digital cameras. We ourselves will want to deploy digital cameras in the future. One final point about how this treaty differs from a kind of, and the Russian platform differs from a spy platform, one of their national technical means, one of their satellite birds, something like that. It differs because we are closely intertwined with how they implement. Our technicians are on those planes. When they fly across the country, we get every single photograph they take so we can see what they're photographing. That's much different from national technical means. We don't know what they're photographing with their satellites.
But I guess my question is, how does the administration intend to respond? Is it your testimony then that we view their request as in compliance with the agreement?
It's absolutely in compliance with the agreement. It's something we're going to want to do.
So is Russia in full compliance with the treaty, given it imposes restriction on territories that's subject to the surveillance?
We have, if I could just make one final point on the last thing, national technical means, we can mitigate. Sometimes we know what's happening. But with open skies, we have the right under the treaty to take mitigating measures. If we don't want the Russians to see something, we can mitigate. And we plan for that and think about it. So that's one final point. On
territory. There are restrictions on where they can go.
We are concerned, and if you've had a chance to look at our compliance report in the last year, you will see there several concerns laid out about these restrictions that the Russians are placing, for example, on our ability to fly close to what we consider, and everybody else considers, sovereign Georgian territory. The Russians say, we don't want you flying close to Abkhazia and South Ossetia. So these are compliance concerns. We have raised them with the Russian Federation. We've just been...
What about domestically in the U.S.?
In the U.S.?
Yes. I mean, concerns about territorial limitations on them. Are they in compliance with the agreement in terms of how what it imposes on them over U.S. territory?
We essentially are ourselves in compliance with the treaty, so we let them fly according to proper requests over U.S. territory.
Have they asked to go to areas that are not necessarily part of the treaty, in essence, for example, over the U.S. electrical grid and other sorts of areas?
Well,
there's been open source reporting that these flights are taking pictures of and looking at areas that are not national defense related per se, but in fact have to do with our electrical grid and other things of this nature. I've seen the open source reporting. So is there a concern about that?
Right, sir. I think we have to take account of the fact that their national technical means, their spy satellites and other means are constantly photographing our entire territory. Again, they have the right to photograph. They have to file their flight plans, though. They have our experts on board, our technicians, and we get the photos that they take, and so do all the other treaty partners. So I think there's actually an advantage, because then we know what is interesting them. There's an advantage to us.
Well, so let me read you a quote from General Stewart, the director of DIA, who recently testified that, here's this quote. He said, "I have great concern about the quality of the imagery, the quantity of the imagery, the ability to do post-processing of digital imagery, and what that allows them to see as foundational intelligence that I would love to have personally, and I would love to deny the Russians having that capability, end quote. So I signed a letter with my Democratic and Republican colleagues on the Senate Intelligence Committee highlighting the concerns of professionals such as these about this request. Is he wrong in this statement?
General Stewart has particular responsibilities related to intelligence collection, national technical means. I do want to stress that the Open Skies Treaty is an arms control treaty with a larger set of goals and purposes, among them confidence building, mutual confidence building, and so I do think that the treaty has a great value in that regard. It has a great value to our allies and to our partners, such as Ukraine. Ukrainians made great use of the treaty during this terrible crisis with Russia. So I do think we need to bear in mind that the purpose is somewhat different from national technical means. It has a larger purpose, which is mutual confidence and predictability, and the predictability is of great value nowadays. So I think General Stewart and I have a somewhat different view of the utility of the treaty, but certainly I understand his responsibilities and what they entail.
Well, you talk about this. Let me ask you one more question. How can we trust that Russia is sharing information acquired through the treaty with the treaty partners?
Because we are there as they take the pictures, and we know what they're taking, and we get the material, basically.
So we have full confidence that they are, in fact, sharing the information that they're acquiring?
Yes, we do. And, sir, I just wanted to take note that there has been, to my knowledge, a recent study that has come out. It is classified in Nature, but I think you and your colleagues would benefit from seeing it. It's just come out in the last couple of days, so I think it'd be well worth getting it to you for a review of it.
Okay, thank you.